discomfort of impatience this week? Or perhaps maybe just in recent days? That moment when you feel like your skin crawling as something is not happening along your timeline. Just me? That point in time where it feels like moments are just slipping through your fingers and you are powerless to stop it. Rushing to somewhere when you know you are already late. Fighting against the clock and finally accepting that you are just going to arrive late. It can be a deeply uncomfortable place to sit and to dwell in. This discomfort of impatience. And I cannot help but think that there may be power in those moments when turned towards the collective rather than towards our own individual benefit. Impatience is a deep motivator. This past week, I sat in a convention center style room in Las Vegas. It was really hard. Somebody had to do it. It was 60 degrees out. The sun was shining. Sorry. But I was still in this room. I was in this room. And I was alongside a group of clergy from all over the country, listening to this local minister speak about the urgent need for prophetic witness and voice and action in these times. She too quoted King, though not from a letter from a Birmingham jail, not from the piece I just read. She reminded us of these words from him. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. And as she was saying these words, it just really resonated with me. It resonated with this theme of waiting that we've been wrestling with this month. It spoke to my soul and it kind of woke me up in that moment. Oh, tomorrow is today. The tomorrow we often speak about when we commit to taking that action. The tomorrow we speak about when we want to do something about this world, but we are too tired or overwhelmed or just tapped out. As I was listening to her, I had to sit with the question, are we too late? Have we procrastinated to the point of too much damage done? In moments of hopelessness, I have to say, I struggle with this. It is hard not to feel hopeless right now. It is sometimes hard to believe in the inherent goodness of humanity as we watch white supremacist activity continue to rise, as we watch sacred indigenous land be decimated and destroyed in favor of building a wall to keep immigrants out, as we watch children being continually separated and under-supported in our school systems. It is hard not to feel hopeless in these times. In the watching and in the waiting, I have to admit to you all, sometimes I feel frozen. It's as if all of this is happening around me and it's hard to know what to do to make it all stop. And I think that at its core, this feeling of frozenness has its roots in fear. A fear that says it's not the right time. A fear that says perhaps if we ask in this way, we will get what we want. A fear that operates in tandem with control to have us believe there is a right time or a good way to behave to obtain the justice we seek in the world. I hear that fear in the response of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this morning in our reading a letter from a Birmingham jail. A fear, I hear the response to that fear that would tell people living in that time that these nonviolent direct actions should have happened earlier or later. that these essential actions that later led to the Voting Rights Act and to racial integration in ways people had not yet imagined could be possible, these actions should have happened in some other time and place. The invitation was to watch and to wait, to rock the boat just a little, but not to be impolite about it, to negotiate rather than to bring about the tension that might later lead to negotiation. I sometimes wonder if one of the main problems of our time and in King's time is that so many of us were waiting and watching and buying the lie that there is nothing we can do about the injustices of our country and our world. A lie that does not honor the sacrifices and the work of our ancestors. A lie that does not honor the theological heritage out of which we in this room come, that affirms that all are one and all are loved. A lie that would tell us that there is nothing to hope for right now. But here's the truth, dear ones. We have power. Each one of us has power. Each one of us has a unique contribution to make to the collective. Whether we are the folks with the ideas or the folks with the ability to carry things through, whether we are creative or smart, or we are the folks who do not give up, whether we are inspiring or we sing our own song or we are strong, we each have power. It is our choice whether or not to hide it away, to hide it from the world, to spend our energy watching and waiting, or to use this power for good. Who benefits from us believing we are powerless? Who benefits from the watching and the waiting, the procrastination, the idea of tomorrow? Who benefits from our remaining in a fearful place? I'll tell you right now, I don't believe that any one of us in this room benefits. It's not us. It's not our neighbors. It's those who have historically been in power, the 1%. The politically and economically powerful whose wealth and prestige rests on decades of cultural theft, on labor and on systems that seek to separate rather than unite. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us of this when speaking about the politics of Birmingham, Alabama in 1967, when he was arrested for nonviolent direct action. He writes in his famous letter, "We are sadly mistaken if we feel that the election of Albert Beltwell as mayor will bring about the millennium to Birmingham. While Mr. Beltwell is a much more gentle person than Mr. Bull Connor." I wish I could do a little history lesson right now, but I'm sure many of you are familiar. They are both segregationists, dedicated to the maintenance of the status quo. I have hope that Mr. Beltwell will be reasonable enough to see the futility of massive resistance to desegregation, but he will not see this without the pressure from devotees to civil rights. My friends, I must say to you that we have not made one single gain in civil rights without determined, legal, and nonviolent pressure. Lamentably, it is an historical fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privileges voluntarily. As I was reading this, I was wondering about his 501c3 status, but in our time context, this is a reminder that those who hold political and economic power will not change. The systems that have been upheld will not change. The written legislation and the unspoken yet practiced rules that allow police to murder young black people, that allow for mass white supremacist marches to happen in Washington, D.C. with police protection, that allow for black and brown trans people to continually be criminalized. These systems will not change unless we are willing to embrace our power and challenge them. Unless we are willing to face our fears head on and move forward, knowing that they are there and knowing that fear does not get the last word. Unless we are willing to partner with our neighbors and see that there is more to lose if these systems stay in place than the mere pittance privilege affords many of us in this room. We have so very much to lose, each one of us. Even if you sit with privilege, this watching and this waiting has stripped so many of us of our humanity that to this point we are now numb to the constant news of atrocities happening to our neighbors. That is a loss of humanity. Our freedoms are at stake in this very moment. The hope lies in each one of us recognizing this truth and in our coming together with our individual powers to collectively change the systems that seek to oppress. I look back to the stories lifted up this morning in former President Barack Obama's letter to his daughters. I see there people whose freedoms were threatened as well. He says about Helen Keller, never waiting for life to get easier, she gave others courage to face their challenges. He tells the story of the bravery of Jackie Robinson, whose actions, as well as the actions of those who supported him, gave Black folks access to spaces that had previously been segregated. Or Billie Holiday, who sang her own songs like Strange Fruit, which drew national attention to lynching and risked her white audience's discomfort for a larger cause. These were people who had much to fear. And I'm sure that there were many moments when they were afraid. But these were also people who saw that the power that they held individually could be used for a larger good. Their actions could influence the lives of generations to come, and their actions have influenced all of our lives in this room. What is the power that you hold? And I'm not saying you need to be a celebrity or a big-time singer or a sports star. We know that so many movements for justice and liberation throughout our history have been carried through by the folks who are not in the spotlight. The folks who continue showing up to feed people, to train people, to take care of the children, to keep track of the logistical results, to speak, to facilitate, to support. There may not be many books written or stories told about these folks, but each one of their contributions were significant. And each one of your contributions can be significant. What is the power that you hold? Because this world, this country, this community so desperately needs it. In fact, you may say, we are waiting for it. And the longer we wait, the longer we hold back, the longer we stay frozen in fear or in overwhelm or whatever, tomorrow will most certainly turn into today. We will most certainly get to a place of too late. I am reminded this morning that freedom is not free, and the timing of the need for people to rise up is actually never convenient. This year, 2020, is an election year. I don't know if you had heard. Where so many need to be counted in this election. It's also a census year, a tool for tracking population information that may seem a bit mundane, but it also determines educational funding resources, social support systems, and so much more. And the folks that often go undercounted in both the vote and the census are people who most often rely on the resources and the support, who see the consequences firsthand of our broken political system. I would hate for us to get to the end of this year. I would hate for us to even get to this upcoming November, wondering what might have happened had we not stood by, waiting and watching. I would hate for an opportunity to be reporting numbers that might impact funding for the Rochester City School District to be missed. And I would hate to see our country again grieving and despairing following a national election year, sitting with devastation and hopelessness. In the words of Dr. King, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed. In the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation, for years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. How long will we wait? How long can we in this room deny? How long will fear be allowed to rule? I wonder. Next week, Dolores DeLamba will be picking up this conversation. Thank you, Dolores. With her sermon entitled, How Long? Too Long. And I really hope that you're going to join us for that, as it will be a lively and a thought-provoking Sunday morning. Dear ones, the time is now for us to claim our power. The fierce urgency of now is knocking at our doors and asking us to no longer sit by and watch and wait at this critical moment of change, as this critical moment of change and potential may pass us by. May the discomfort of impatience become too much to bear. May we be able to face our fears and act anyway. May we be so courageous as to not call for others to wait, but to join in community partnerships that work towards rights and dignity for all, especially for those who have been oppressed for too long.